Welcome, listeners, to Broken Promises. The story I'm sharing today is about a husband who, on a business trip, called his mother to kick out his wife for a new woman, only to be shocked when his mother called back, frantic, saying, "She sold the house and threw me out on the street." It was Boston, in the damp, gray days after the new year. The last of the Christmas wreaths were coming down in the neighborhood, but inside my home, a storm was just beginning to brew. My name is Emily. I'm 37, a freelance interior designer. My son, Liam, is 6 and in the first grade. My husband, Mark, works in import-export and travels often for business. I used to tell myself that a busy man is a successful man, until that busyness turned into a chilling coldness. My husband and I lived with his parents in a condo that was in both our names. My mother-in-law, Karen, valued appearances and social standing above all else. Her voice was soft, but every word was like a needle hitting a nerve. My father-in-law, Arthur, was a man of principle. He adored his grandson but rarely interfered. On the morning of January 6th, the air was so humid the tile floors felt sticky. I was making oatmeal for Liam and warming up some leftover holiday ham, trying to time everything to get him to school while also thinking about the design drafts I needed to send a client. I just wanted a peaceful morning, but in my in-laws' house, peace was a luxury. Karen walked out, her eyes sweeping from the stove to the dish rack. "We have guests coming, the house should be presentable. People will talk if they see it like this." My hand froze, but I kept my voice polite. "Yes, I'll get right on it." She didn't reply, just looked at Liam, who was tying his shoes. He looked up. "Grandma, I have a spelling test today." Karen just grunted, then turned to me. "Get him to school, but come back quickly. We have things to do for the next few days." I didn't get a chance to ask what. When her phone rang, Mark's name lit up the screen. As was her habit, she put it on speaker, wanting the whole house to hear. Mark's voice came through, clipped and sharp. "Mom, listen to me. You don't have to kick her out directly. Just make it so she leaves on her own." I stood frozen, the hot bowl of oatmeal in my hands, a chill running down my spine. Karen let out a soft chuckle. "And the locks?" Mark's reply was quick, as if rehearsed. "Wait until she takes Liam out, then change them. If anyone asks, say the lock was broken and you had a handyman fix it. Don't make a scene, just make sure she can't get back in." For a few seconds, I heard nothing but the pounding of my own heart. The condo was in both our names, yet in my husband's mouth, I was someone to be locked out like a stranger. The worst part was the humiliation. Right in front of my mother-in-law. Mark continued, his voice lower. "Get ready to welcome our guest, Mom. Be strong. I've got this." A guest. I understood immediately. The things to do were to prepare for someone else's arrival. I was just an obstacle to be removed. Karen's voice was firm. "Don't you worry. I know what to do." I swallowed hard. I wanted to demand an explanation, to scream. "What do you take me for?" But I looked at Liam. He deserved a normal morning, not to hear adults tear each other apart with words. People say to air your dirty laundry in private, but for me, hiding it wasn't about pride, it was for my son. Arthur stepped out from the living room. He gave me a long look, saying nothing. It wasn't a look of support, but a silent reminder to stay sharp. I understood. If I exploded, the first casualty would be Liam. I knelt and straightened his collar. "Do you have your jacket? It's damp out." Liam took my hand, his small palm warm in mine. That warmth stopped my trembling. I remembered my mother's advice, keep a cool head, and you can keep a home for your child. Home wasn't just four walls, it was a lifeline. Before leaving, my eyes darted to the spare key hook by the shoe cabinet. I didn't touch it, just memorized its place. They were planning to change the locks. I had to plan how to hold on to the key to my own life. Karen saw us to the door, her voice a condescending pat on the head. "Go on, and come straight back. No dawdling." I managed a faint smile. "Yes, I'll drop him at school and come right back." The heavy door clicked shut, my reflection a blur on its steel surface. I was still myself, still the daughter-in-law playing her part. But from the moment I heard that call, I knew some cracks don't make a sound. They're silent, like a cold drizzle, seeping in until you're chilled to the bone. I used to believe that if you're good, good things will happen. I used to believe that one concession could prevent 9 conflicts. But there's a difference between compromising to keep a family warm and letting someone walk all over you. Now, I only believed one thing: kindness must have limits. Otherwise, people mistake it for weakness. And I would not allow that anymore. After dropping Liam at school, I drove back home, my heart heavy. Post-holiday Boston still had remnants of festive red on doorways, but the damp chill was relentless. When I got to the door, I paused before pressing the elevator button, Mark's words echoing in my head like a splash of ice water. Inside, Karen had changed into a dark, but neatly pressed house's dress. Strangely, she wasn't scolding as usual. She paced, glancing at the clock, then the mirror, as if preparing for an important visitor. I walked in, still polite. "I'm back." She just grunted, her eyes fixed on her phone, which lay face up on the table. I saw the screen light up repeatedly, then a name appeared: Chloe. Karen quickly sat and answered, switching to a video call. On the screen was a young woman with light makeup, curled hair, and a perfectly charming smile. Her voice was sweet as honey. "Hi, Karen. How have you been?" "It's Chloe, Mark's friend." The word friend was drawn out, soft as silk but sharp enough to cut. I was in the kitchen, washing a glass, and I heard every word. My spine felt colder than the tap water. Karen's face lit up with a genuine smile, a stark contrast to the tight-lipped ones she gave me. "Oh, Chloe, dear. What a nice surprise. You caught me at a good time." Chloe tilted her head, her voice soft. "I had a friend bring back some wellness supplements, and I wanted to send you a little something, some luxury skincare products and a gift certificate for a spa day. For your health. I'll be back in the States in a few days and I'd love to stop by and say hello, if it's not too much trouble." I heard skincare and a spa day and almost laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh. Someone was boosting my mother-in-law's health while I was being plotted against. Life is funny that way. Sometimes, the most valuable offerings aren't served at the dinner table but are gifted at just the right moment. Karen was clearly delighted, her tone uncharacteristically warm. "Trouble? Of course not, dear. How thoughtful of you, that's so lovely." She then asked, "How is Mark's work over there? Is everything going well?" Chloe smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "Oh, Mark is so busy, Karen. He talks about you all the time, told me I had to call you first thing when I got back." I felt a lump in my throat. Mark was thinking about his mother, about her. What about his son? His wife? He probably only mentioned us when he needed to give an order. Karen spoke as if showing off a prized possession. "Yes, he's always been ambitious. That's how a man should be. You can't get ahead if you're stuck in the kitchen." After saying that, she shot a glance in my direction. I kept my head down, washing the glass, telling myself to stay calm. Don't fall into their emotional trap. Chloe feigned a blush on screen. "Oh, I just hope you'll like me." "Of course I do. A smart, considerate girl like you." Karen laughed, then her voice dropped conspiratorially. "But you know, being a daughter-in-law means knowing your place. I can't stand the ones who act so entitled." I almost dropped the glass. That comment wasn't just for Chloe, it was a dagger aimed straight at me, just wrapped in plastic to keep it clean. The call ended. Karen put down her phone as if she'd just closed a major deal. She stood up, looked around the condo, and gave an order disguised as a suggestion. "Emily, wipe down the living room. And take those curtains down to be washed. Polish the floors, too. We have an honored guest coming. We can't have them thinking we live in filth." I took a deep breath. Honored guest. She stressed the words. If I reacted, she'd have an excuse to call me a jealous, bitter wife. If I stayed silent, she'd push me further, treating me like the hired help. I chose a third path: comply, but with my eyes wide open. Yes, I'll do it. I went to the laundry room, started the machine, my hands busy, but my mind racing. I started a new note on my phone. Not to complain, but to document. January 6th, video call from Chloe. Promise of gifts. Karen's mention of an honored guest. They were all bricks. I didn't know what I would need to build later, but I knew I needed a foundation to stand firm. While I cleaned, Karen was on the phone, boasting to someone. I couldn't hear who, only fragments. Yes, the girl comes from a good family. Very well spoken, knows her manners. Not like some. The unfinished sentence told me everything. I was being compared like a piece of meat at the market. I gripped the mop handle tighter, telling myself, they can hold the scales, but I don't have to step on them. Arthur came out of his study, a newspaper in his hand. He saw Karen's bustling excitement and my quiet drudgery, his gaze finally settling on the phone on the table. He didn't ask, didn't scold. He just said, almost to himself, when the adults are in turmoil, it's the boy who suffers. I looked up. He met my eyes for a second, then turned away. In that 1 second, I knew he wasn't oblivious. He just chose to stand on the sidelines, not escalating the conflict, but not blind to it either. The afternoon faded quickly, the damp air fogging the windows. The living room lights cast a pale yellow glow. I finished washing the curtains and hung them in the bathroom to dry. Karen walked by, nodding in approval. Her voice sounded like she was granting a favor. If you're always this sensible, you can stay. I looked at her, and a strange calm settled over me. Stay. So this place was no longer my home, but a place where my presence was subject to approval. I remembered the saying, a wise bird chooses its branch. But for a bird to choose a branch, it first needs its wings. That night, I ate dinner with my in-laws as usual. But I was no longer the woman who only knew how to bow her head. I was beginning to see the full picture, piece by piece. And once I saw it, I knew I couldn't pretend it wasn't there anymore. The next morning, I was up before my alarm. Not because I was diligent, but because in this house, sleeping in for 10 extra minutes was an excuse for a lecture. Boston was still damp. The cold tile floor felt slick under my feet. I made French toast and sausage for Liam. He mumbled his spelling words while he ate. Watching his little mouth form each word, I reminded myself, no matter what storms are raging outside, to my son, I must always be a pillar. Karen came out, wearing a light robe, a dish towel in her hand like a ruler. She eyed the French toast, then the glass of milk, and cleared her throat. The toast is too soggy, it'll give him a stomachache. The sausage is overcooked. A child will have trouble chewing it. A mother should be more attentive. I put down my fork, my voice still soft. Yes, I'll be more careful next time. She didn't need an explanation, she needed me to admit fault, to reaffirm that she was in charge. I understood that, so I didn't argue, but her words no longer pierced my heart as they once did. After dropping Liam at school, I returned home and dove into my work. A client needed revisions on a bedroom design, and I had to send them before noon. I set up my laptop at the dining table, working while keeping an eye on the pot of water for mopping the floor. My life lately felt like a pan on 2 burners. Both were hot, ignoring either would result in a fire. Around 10 a.m., Karen called me into the living room. She was already seated, holding the family expense ledger. That ledger, I used to be invited to contribute, for show. Now, I was cast aside like a used coaster. The electricity bill is up this month. It must be you, always on that computer and running the AC. Women who work can't seem to earn a dime but love to spend. I looked up. She was the one who used the air conditioner the most. But the statement didn't have to be true. It just had to make me feel like a freeloader. I'll be more mindful. You should have been mindful a long time ago, she sneered. And about that joint savings account, I've told you before, women shouldn't handle money. Men have bigger things to worry about. I froze. The joint savings account, she mentioned it so casually, as if it were a matter of course. But that was the sweat of both my husband and me. I didn't ask what she knew, asking would reveal my hand. I just nodded to get through it. Inside, a thread of vigilance tightened. That afternoon, I got a text from Mark. He didn't ask about our son, didn't ask if I'd eaten. Just one blunt sentence: don't make things complicated at home. I looked at the screen and laughed out loud, a joyless laugh. People only fear complications when they're hiding something that isn't simple. I didn't reply. I was learning the art of strategic silence. As the saying goes, choose your words wisely. But I no longer wanted to please others. I wanted to find my own way. When I picked up Liam from school, he ran into the house, bursting with news. "Mommy, I got a 100 on my test." I knelt to hug him and kiss his forehead. But from behind me, Karen's voice cut through the air. "A 100 is good, but you need manners. It's rude to enter a house without greeting anyone." Liam flinched. "Hi, Grandma," he mumbled. I saw him look at me, his eyes asking, "Did I do something wrong, Mommy?" My heart ached. I led him to his room to change clothes and wash his hands. I wouldn't teach my son to talk back to his elders, but I would teach him to be kind. "It was right to greet your grandma," I said softly. "But you did nothing wrong by being happy. It's okay to be happy, as long as you're not disrespectful." Liam nodded, then suddenly asked, "Mommy, why is Grandma always yelling at you?" The innocent question was like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through my heart. I sat down next to him, choosing my words carefully. "Grandma is just very direct," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She and I think differently, so sometimes we clash. But I love you, so I try my best." Liam wrapped his arms around my neck. "I love you, Mommy," he whispered. I turned away, afraid he would see my eyes watering. A child's love is what can make a woman her strongest, and also her most vulnerable. Later that evening, while I was getting Liam's allergy medicine from the cabinet, I saw Arthur tidying the shelves. He didn't look at me directly, but gently pushed the medicine box forward, as if by accident. "The boy's been coughing a lot. It's this damp weather," he said in a level voice. "Make sure he gets the right dose." "Yes, Dad." "Thank you," I replied. He was silent for a moment, then continued, his voice still low. "Whatever is happening, think of the boy first." I felt a sting in my nose. He didn't ask what was wrong, didn't advise me not to make a scene. He just reminded me of my son, an anchor to keep me from being swept away by anger. That night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone at the dining table and opened my banking app. I wasn't searching in a panic. I was searching with a clear head. I scrolled through the transactions, tracking the dates. There were small, regular transfers, so skillfully done it was like someone drawing blood drop by drop, so you wouldn't notice until you fainted. I locked my phone and set it down. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I thought of the saying, "Constant dripping wears away a stone." They were using time to wear me down my dignity, my rights as a wife, even my claim to the home that bore my name. But if water can wear away stone, stone can also block water, as long as it stands in the right place. I went into Liam's room. He was asleep, his hand still clutching a colored pencil, as if holding on to the day's joy. I pulled the blanket over him and turned off the light. In the darkness, I no longer prayed for a passive kind of peace. I just prayed for the clarity to walk to where I needed to go, with clean feet and a cool head. That weekend, my in-laws hosted their annual New Year's dinner for the extended family. Karen called it a good luck meal, but I knew it was also an opportunity for her to assert her authority and teach her daughter-in-law a lesson. She sent me to the market early with a long list. The fish had to be fresh, the roast perfectly marbled, the greens unwilted. I did it all, not out of fear, but because I wanted the meal to go smoothly, so Liam wouldn't have to listen to any harsh words. By noon, the relatives started to arrive. An aunt from Mark's side sat down and laughed loudly. "Oh, Karen, your family seems to be doing very well this year. Just look at this living room." Karen smoothed her dress, replying nonchalantly, "Oh, it's all thanks to Mark. He works so hard." A man has to provide. Then she turned to me and tossed out a comment like a pinch of salt. A daughter-in-law just needs to maintain the household, not get ambitious about other things. I placed a platter of deviled eggs on the table and smiled politely. Yes, of course. The aunt sipped her tea, looking me up and down as if inspecting merchandise. An interior designer, that sounds so fancy. The income must be good. Before I could answer, Karen cut in, her voice a mix of a laugh and a jab. Good? It's just a hobby. The man handles the money. When a woman starts getting calculating, the home falls apart. A few people chuckled. My ears burned, but I sat down, poured dipping sauce, and put food on Liam's plate. I didn't want to turn a family dinner into a battlefield. As the saying goes, be clever when dealing with outsiders, but with in-laws, sometimes arguing only gets you branded as disrespectful. But Karen wasn't finished. In the middle of the meal, she put down her chopsticks and sighed dramatically. Some people come into your home and think they own the place. If you say something, you're a difficult mother-in-law. If you don't, the house descends into chaos. The aunt chimed in immediately. That's right. In-laws are guests, they need to know their place. I sat up straight. The word guests felt like a slap. I was Mark's wife, Liam's mother, a contributor to this very condo, and in their mouths, I was a guest. I looked at Arthur. He continued to eat slowly, not interjecting. But just as Karen was about to say more, he put down his bowl. His voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the table. Whatever we say in this house, we should think of the child. He's growing up, and he'll remember. Just one sentence, and no one dared to laugh again. Karen looked flustered and lamely picked up a piece of fish. You always worry too much. Arthur didn't reply. He stood up and went into his room as if he'd just been commenting on the weather. I saw again his strange way of supporting me, not openly, but just enough to make others back down. After dinner, the relatives moved to the living room for tea. I went to the kitchen to wash dishes, my hands working while I listened to the chatter outside. Karen was again boasting about her honored guest, about the expensive gifts, the good manners, and then she threw in a few more veiled remarks about people who didn't know their place. I didn't go out. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing my pride was wounded. After finishing the dishes, I went to the medicine cabinet to get Liam's cough syrup. There, next to the bottle of Vaporub and some vitamin packets, was a neatly folded piece of paper, placed as if someone intentionally wanted me to see it. I opened it. It was just a phone number and a name, David Evans, Esquire. Below it, a short, masculine handwriting added, "Call if you need to." I stood motionless, not from surprise, but because for the first time in this house, someone had given me a sign that I wasn't being cornered with no way out. I turned my head. Arthur was standing at the doorway of his room, not looking at me. He just gave a slight nod, then turned away. No explanation was needed. I understood it was his way of preserving the family's dignity while still giving my son and me an escape route. Late that night, after the guests had left, Karen walked past my door and deliberately dropped a comment, half joking, half threatening. If the front door lock acts up, one of these days and a locksmith has to replace it, that's a normal thing. Don't think anyone is trying to make things difficult. I looked up, my gaze calm. Of course, Mom. Things in the house break, they need to be replaced. Karen seemed taken aback. She was probably expecting me to panic, but I refused to give her that victory. That night, I didn't cry. I sat at the small desk in my room and did something I had previously shied away from. I took pictures of important documents I knew the location of, a copy of the condo's deed, the original purchase agreement, some old loan papers. I didn't take them, just saved the images and dated them. Better safe than sorry. The old saying was right. Sometimes, peace isn't given to you, it's something you prepare for. As I put my phone away, I looked at the lawyer's number again. It was small, but it made me feel less alone. I remembered the saying, what goes around, comes around. They were borrowing my patience, borrowing my dignity. The time to repay would come. I folded the note and tucked it deep inside my purse, in the same pocket where I kept Liam's birth certificate. To me, it was no longer just a number. It was a reminder I had the right to live with dignity, and my son had the right to grow up in a home where his mother wasn't treated like a stranger. That night, I barely slept. It wasn't from sobbing in despair, but because my mind was unusually clear. I lay next to my son, listening to his steady breathing, and repeated a single phrase to myself: better safe than sorry. Arthur hadn't given me the lawyer's number to start a fight, but to keep me from being led by the nose. The next morning, I took my son to school earlier than usual. On the way, Liam chattered about his class. I smiled and responded, but inside, a clock was ticking backward. I needed to be sure, was I being paranoid, or was I truly being deceived? When I got home, Karen was on the balcony, trimming herbs. Seeing me, she didn't ask about Liam, only said, "Are you done running around? Make some soup for lunch. Something light to start the year." I said yes and hung up my purse. I didn't go to the kitchen. I went straight to my room, closed the door, and opened my phone like someone searching for footprints in their own home. I rarely checked our joint savings account. Not because I didn't care, but because Mark always said, "Don't you worry, I'll take care of it." When we were in love, those words were comforting. Now, they were chilling. I logged in. The balance appeared on the screen. I blinked once, then again, thinking I'd misread. The amount was drastically lower. Not by a few hundred, not by 1,000, but a gap big enough to take your breath away. I scrolled down to the transaction history. The entries were neat, regular, and unhurried. The money wasn't withdrawn all at once, but in multiple transactions, each one just small enough that a casual glance might dismiss it as regular spending. I tallied the withdrawals by month. My fingers grew cold. The final number materialized on the screen: $45,000. I put the phone down and stared at the wall. $45,000. It wasn't a small sum. It was the money from my late-night design projects. It was the money Mark had proudly said was for Liam's future. It was the money we had planned to use to renovate Liam's room when he was older. I refused to panic. I stood up, poured a glass of water, took a sip, and sat back down. I took screenshots of the bank statements and saved them in a secure folder. I didn't know what I would need later, but I understood one thing: with evidence, people have to listen. In this house, a woman's words were sometimes as light as smoke. Only paper was as heavy as stone. When Karen went out to run errands, the condo was quiet. I called Mark. The phone rang for a long time before he picked up, his voice sharp, as if I were interrupting. "What is it?" I kept my voice even, trying to make each word land precisely. "Mark, I was just looking at our joint savings account. There's a total of $45,000 withdrawn." "When did you take it out?" A second of silence, then two. I could hear background noise, like the hum of an air conditioner in a hotel room. Mark chuckled dryly. "Why are you scrutinizing it so closely?" "I needed it for a business deal." "What kind of deal?" I asked, my voice still light. "A project," he answered curtly. "I told you." I held my breath. "A project." He used that word like a lid, ready to slam it down on me if I pried further. "Can I see the project documents? It's our shared money. I need to know for our budget." Mark let out an exasperated sigh. "Here you go again. It's money I earned. Do I need your permission to spend it?" I heard those words, money I earned, and my lips tightened. In a marriage, that phrase is a knife. It erases my contributions, erases the word "are" that both law and morality recognize. I didn't raise my voice. I just said slowly, "That's our family's savings. I have a right to know." Mark changed his tone, a mix of patronizing and placating. "Just trust me, okay? I'm busy. Don't make a big deal out of nothing. If Mom hears you questioning me, she'll say you don't respect your husband." I laughed silently. He wasn't answering the question, he was pulling his mother into it as a shield. He was playing on my fear of being labeled disrespectful, hoping I would back down. But not this time. "Don't change the subject," I said, my voice low but clear. I'm just asking where the money is. Mark was silent for another beat, then answered, annoyed. It's my business where it is. You just take care of our son. Women shouldn't meddle. I didn't reply immediately. I let a few seconds pass as if I were thinking. In reality, I was recording the time, the date, and his exact words. In my head, women shouldn't meddle echoed like a slamming door. I spoke one last time, still polite. Fine. When you have a moment, send me the documents. Then I hung up. I sat still for a long time. It hurt, of course. It hurt to be treated like an outsider in my own marriage. But this pain was different from before. It didn't break me, it woke me up. Just then, the door opened. Karen came in, grocery bags in hand. She dropped them on the table, pulling off her mask. See? A new year means eating properly, not sitting around on your phone all day. I looked at her calmly. I was just finishing up some work. She glanced at me, her tone a mix of contempt and warning. This family has rules. A woman's place is in the kitchen. Leave the finances to the men. I heard her words and saw it clearly. It wasn't just Mark who saw me as small. Karen wanted me to be small, too, so I would be easier to control. When the top is crooked, how can the bottom be straight? I went into the kitchen to make the soup she had asked for. My hands were busy, but a clear decision had formed in my mind. I would no longer ask for the money with tears. I would find the answer with documents, with procedure, with things no one could argue away. When I picked Liam up from school, he ran in, excited that his teacher had praised him. I hugged him, the warmth spreading through me, pulling me from the chill of those numbers. I told myself, money can be lost, dignity can be trampled, but my son must never lack a stable mother. That night, after Liam was asleep, I opened my purse and took out the piece of paper with the lawyer's number. I didn't call right away. I just looked at it for a moment, then put it back. I understood that the first step had to be a sure one. They say to catch a tiger, you have to go into its lair. But to go into its lair, you need a torch. I didn't call Mark again that night. I knew when someone held all the cards, grabbing at them would only get your hands cut. I chose to get up early with my son. I made sure his day was normal. I took him to school, bought him a new box of crayons, picked up his vitamins from the pharmacy. Small actions to keep his world from being disrupted. But in my head, things were different. I started listening to Mark with a new clarity. I took every word he said and examined it. I no longer blamed myself or wondered if I was overthinking things. They say a silent blow hurts the longest. But when the pain lasts too long, you learn how to bandage the wound yourself. Mark called back at noon. He called just as I was at my computer, finishing a client's design. I saw his number, took a breath, and answered. Why are you so tense? He started, his tone teasing, but with an undercurrent of annoyance. I replied normally. I'm not tense. I just want to be clear about our joint funds so we can plan. He scoffed. Joint funds again. You're always so formal. We're husband and wife, not accountants. I didn't take the bait. I asked directly, which days did you withdraw the money? Who did you transfer it to? Do you have a contract or any paperwork? A short silence, then his tone grew heavy. Are you investigating me? I'm asking you, my husband, I replied. I have the right to ask. Right? What right? He shot back, as if I'd said something ridiculous. You're at home with our son while I'm out there making a living. I need capital, so I took it. Hearing the words, you're at home with our son, made my throat burn. As if raising a child into a person was a worthless task. I held back and said, I work too. I contribute. Let's not turn each other's efforts into an excuse for disrespect. Mark paused, then clicked his tongue. Look, I'm tired. I don't want to fight. Can't you just trust me for once? This was his classic move. When cornered, he pulled me back to emotions. If I pushed further, I would become the wife who didn't trust her husband. It was a cleverly set trap. I answered slowly. Trust is earned with proof. Blind trust is self-harm. On the other end, Mark sighed heavily. You talk a good game, but have you thought about how I feel? I'm trying to close a deal, and you're questioning me like this. It's embarrassing. A question popped out of my mouth, not loud, but clear. Are you embarrassed, or are you afraid of being exposed? The air seemed to freeze. What did you just say? He snarled. Who taught you to be so suspicious? I knew he was trying to shift the fight to my attitude, to avoid the question of where the money was. I didn't follow. I returned to the main point. Where is the money? Just answer that one question. He threw out an answer. I invested it. I have a contact. What do you know about it? What investment? What contact? What's their name? Where's the paperwork? I asked. My tone still even. Mark was furious now, his voice sharp as steel. Emily. That's enough. If you want a peaceful life, you'll listen to me. Don't make a big deal out of nothing. I heard the words peaceful life and shuddered. It wasn't a life of peace he was offering, but a life of submission to his will. The peace of silence. Peace can't be bought with my blindness, I said. Mark immediately played his trump card, his mother. You want my mom to hate you even more, don't you? If she hears you questioning me, she'll call you disrespectful. Can you handle that? I smiled faintly. Not a happy smile, but one of sudden understanding. In this conversation, I wasn't talking to a husband concerned for his family. I was talking to someone trying everything to make me back down. I replied, whether your mother hates me or not won't make the money reappear. Don't use her as a shield. Mark was quiet, then his voice softened, trying to coax me. Listen to me. I'm doing this for Liam's future. I took the money to provide for him. If you keep questioning me, I might get distracted and mess things up. Who loses then? This blow struck my weakest point, my son. I admit, whenever he mentioned Liam, my heart softened. But I also understood that if I closed my eyes for Liam's sake, one day Liam himself would pay the price. I said, if you're doing this for our son, you should be transparent. He doesn't need a father who's good with words. He needs a father with integrity. On the other end, Mark let out a short, cold laugh. You're quite the moralist now. Look, I don't have time for this, just drop it, I can handle it. I didn't argue further. I just delivered one final sentence. If you won't answer me, I will find my own way to protect what belongs to my son and me. Is that a threat? He snarled. It's not a threat, I replied. It's a heads up, so you won't be surprised. I hung up. My hand wasn't shaking as I expected. Strangely, the clearer the truth became, the less afraid I was. I sat still for a moment, looking out the window. The sky was still overcast, droplets of condensation on the glass like the sweat of a suffocating house. I remembered the saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It wasn't that I wanted to be suspicious, he was the one teaching me how. That afternoon, I picked Liam up and took him to the building's playground to ride his bike. I smiled with him, asked him what he learned in school, and told myself I had to maintain a normal life for him. The undercurrents were my battle to fight, with a clear head. That night, after Liam was asleep, I took out the pictures of the bank statements I had saved, arranging them by date. I didn't write a single word of complaint. I just created a timeline. The cleaner it was, the harder it would be to deny. Then I took out the lawyer's number and placed it on the desk, under the lamp. I looked at it for a moment as if it were a door. Not a door to revenge, but a door out of this vicious cycle where he told me I was wrong, and I started to believe it. I folded the paper, put it in my wallet, and made a firm decision. From now on, I would no longer beg for the truth with words. I would get it with facts. On the morning of January 17th, I was at the sink washing my hands when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark with a photo of him at the airport. He looked bright, his shirt crisp, a practiced smile on his face like a busy, important man. But the photo showed nothing related to work, no documents, no colleagues, just a corner of a departure gate and a luggage tag. A truly busy person rarely has time to offer reassurance with a picture. Mark sent the photo as a reminder, I'm far away, I'm in control. You're at home, so you'd better behave. I didn't reply. I put my phone down and went straight to Liam's room to look at the schedule, taped to his wall. First grade, tutoring, tests small, clear milestones. In life, sometimes what you need to hold on to isn't a promise, but a concrete schedule. Karen, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of activity. She was no longer just vaguely mentioning things to do. She was now rushing around as if a single minute's delay would ruin everything. She had a tailor come to measure for new curtains, ordered a new set of dishes, and made me clean the balcony glass until it sparkled. As I was cleaning, she stood behind me, her voice a low drone. A clean house earns respect. You can't have people walk in and see a mess. They'll think this family has no standards. I paused for a beat. People. She said it as if the guest was a future owner. I turned, still polite. Yes, I know. She looked me up and down, her eyes weighing me. Then she lowered her voice, feigning a tone of sage advice. A daughter-in-law, if she's smart, knows when to step back. Don't be stubborn. Stubbornness only leads to misery. I heard her words and a clear thought surfaced. She wasn't teaching me to be smart. She was teaching me to disappear. I didn't argue. I just continued my work. But my mind had shifted into calculation mode. Not calculating revenge, but calculating a path forward that was culturally acceptable, that was normal. So that outsiders would see a mother concerned for her child, not a woman who just abandoned her home. When I picked Liam up that afternoon, he ran in shouting, "Mommy, the teacher sent my notebook home for you and Daddy to sign." I took the notebook, my heart twisting. Mark was at an airport, and a father's signature was on a check-in smile. I knelt and smoothed his hair. I'll sign it first, sweetie. Daddy's on a business trip. When he gets back, I'll remind him to sign it, okay? Liam nodded and ran to his desk. I watched him, telling myself that no matter how tangled the adult world got, my son's life had to remain orderly. That evening, I brought up a mundane topic with Karen. Mom, I'm taking Liam for a dental checkup tomorrow. He's been complaining his tooth hurts. I'm worried it's a cavity. I'll be back right after. Karen immediately scowled. A dental checkup? What a waste of money. Kids eat candy, they get cavities. Just have him rinse with salt water. I didn't argue the point. I framed it in a way any mother would understand. I don't want to spend the money either. But if he has a toothache, he might stop eating, and it could affect his schoolwork. I just want to get it checked to be sure. Karen hesitated for a second, then waved her hand dismissively. Fine, go, but be back quickly. I will, I said, and silently made a note on my phone. Tomorrow, dental appointment. A perfectly reasonable excuse to take my son out of the house, reasonable enough to spend a few hours at my mother's without being questioned. The next morning, I took Liam to the dentist. After the appointment, I didn't go straight back. I went to my mother's house, carrying only a small bag with a change of clothes for Liam and a few essentials. I wasn't moving out, I was just preparing. If they were planning to change the locks, I needed a place where my son could sleep soundly if our door suddenly wouldn't open. My mother saw the bag and asked quietly, "Is everything okay over there, honey?" I didn't give her the long story. I just said, "I'm just being cautious. Things have been tense at the house, and I don't want Liam to be affected." My mother sighed but didn't press for details. She just said one thing that made my throat tighten. "Take care of yourself, and take care of that little boy." I nodded. I brought Liam back to his grandparents' house before Karen's usual market time. Just as I'd promised, I was back early. I needed her to think everything was normal. I needed her to believe I was still the obedient daughter-in-law. In a game of chess, a wrong move isn't made from a lack of pieces, but from revealing your strategy too soon. That afternoon, Karen had me clean the living room again. She handed me a shopping list. Go to the market tomorrow and get some nice fruit, pears, grapes, fancy apples. And get a new vase. A house with guests needs to be beautiful. I took the list and nodded. A phrase popped into my head. When a guest comes to visit, you offer them tea or cake. It was a shame the guest she was waiting for was someone plotting to push my son and me out the door. That night, after Liam was asleep, I sat at my desk, opened my phone's contact list, and stopped at a name, Dave, Mark's friend. I didn't call right away. I checked the time and decided to call at a reasonable hour, not too late to arouse suspicion, not too early that he'd be busy. The phone rang. Dave answered, a bit hesitant. Hello? Emily? I kept it brief and polite. Hi, Dave. It's me. I just have a quick question. Have you heard Mark mention any new projects lately? He said he withdrew some money for an investment, and I just wanted to know so I can plan. There was a silence on the other end, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. My heart pounded, but my voice remained calm. Dave sighed. Let me check on that. Okay, I said, not pushing. That one sentence was enough. I knew I was standing at the door to the truth. And the truth rarely opens when you bang on it. It opens with patience. I hung up and looked over at my son's room. Liam was sleeping soundly, his face peaceful. I told myself that in a woman's life, there are times you have to swallow bitterness. Not to choke on it, but to catch your breath and take the next step for your child. I stood up and checked the bag hidden in my closet. Everything was still there. I didn't do anything else. I just solidified one thing in my heart. From now on, I would take each step with a clear reason and a clear timeline, so when the storm hit, my son and I wouldn't be swept away like leaves in the wind. That morning, Boston was still damp, a fine mist clinging to the balcony railing. After dropping Liam at school, I stopped at a store to buy him a new pack of colored pencils. For a child, a small gift can brighten the whole day. For an adult, a single phone call can shatter a lifetime of trust. I had just parked my car in front of the building when my phone rang. Dave. I stood still for a few seconds before answering. Not to be dramatic, but because I was afraid of the truth. They say it's better to know and be hurt than not to know and worry. I was standing right on that line. Dave here, his voice was hoarse, and he didn't beat around the bush. Emily, where are you? I just got home, I replied, trying to sound calm. Is now a good time? There was a beat of silence, then a long sigh. There's no project. I heard those words, and a deep chill went through me. I still asked, as if to double-check what I'd heard. Are you sure? I'm sure, Dave said, his words faster now, as if afraid he'd lose his nerve and go silent again. I work with him. I know. For months, he's been using business trips as an excuse. He's been with someone else. My ears started to ring. I leaned against the cool wall of the hallway, my mind feeling each word like a hammer blow. With someone else. With someone else. I bit my lip and forced out the next question, the words coming out slowly. Is her name Chloe? Dave didn't answer right away. His silence was more painful than a yes. Then he said, his voice low with guilt. Yeah. It's Chloe. He's been introducing her to friends over there. I heard he's even planning a formal introduction. I closed my eyes. A formal introduction. Then what was I? His legal wife, the mother of his child, worthy only of being pressured to leave on her own? Wait until she takes Liam out, then change the locks. I heard someone's door open down the hall, the shuffle of slippers, the ding of the elevator. Life was moving on as normal. Only I was frozen in a corner. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from breaking. Do you know why my mother-in-law has been so busy lately? Dave sighed again. His mom seems to like Chloe. She's been sending all sorts of gifts. Mark told some of us he'd be clearing the way for the new person soon. I let out a small laugh, a sound that felt twisted in my throat. I thanked Dave in a voice so polite it surprised even me. I understand now. Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm sorry, Dave said quickly. I didn't know you were being treated. It's my fault, I cut in, but not with self-pity. My fault for trusting. I hung up. The phone was still warm in my hand, but my heart felt like it had been dunked in ice water. Inside, Karen was arranging a new vase of flowers, muttering about buying imported grapes. When she saw me, she snapped. Where have you been all morning? Dawdling again? I looked at her. There are moments when you want to scream, but after the screaming, what then? My son still had to go to school, still had to live in this house, and the gossiping neighbors would still be there. I chose to set my emotions aside like a fragile porcelain bowl, not to be dropped, but not to be clutched forever either. I was buying something for Liam, I said simply. Karen huffed, then, as if remembering something pleasant, she lowered her voice just enough for me to hear. When a family has good fortune, an honored guest will arrive. You just behave yourself, and everything will be fine. Fine? I wanted to ask. Fine for whom? But I didn't. I went straight to my room and splashed my face with cold water. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were slightly red. But I wasn't crying. I suddenly remembered Valentine's Day, just last month. People were buying flowers, gifts, taking couple photos. And me? I was worried about my son's warm coat and a well-balanced dinner for my in-laws. A blade of grass struggling on the riverbank, an old saying came to mind, both poignant and bitter. I sat on my bed and reopened the screenshots of the bank statements. $45,000. It was no longer a suspicion, it was evidence of a script. A script in which I was being pushed out, with two weapons, money and shame. At that moment, a thought came with absolute clarity. I could not break down here. To break down was to lose. And losing wasn't just losing to Mark, it was losing to everyone waiting for me to disappear so they could welcome their honored guest. Listeners, if you're hearing this, please give a like to support my story. And please, stay until the end. Because what comes after my silence is something many would never expect. I put my phone away, stood up, and went to prepare Liam's afternoon snack to take to his school. I continued to do the things a mother does, so no one in that house would smell a hint of change. But in my mind, a clear set of goals was now written. Protect my son. Protect our legal rights. Leave with my head held high, giving no one an excuse to slander my name. That afternoon, I picked Liam up from school a little early. He was overjoyed, showing me a paper with a gold star. I smiled, took him to the bathroom to wash his hands, and then sat with him while he colored. I wouldn't let him see my turmoil. He didn't need to know what his father was doing. He just needed to know that his mother was here, and she was steady. Once he was asleep, I opened my wallet and took out the note with the lawyer's number. I placed it on the desk, took a picture of it, and saved it in a secure folder. Then I sent a short text, no long story, no self-pity. Mr. Evans, my name is Emily. I would like to schedule a consultation regarding joint assets and child custody. I have bank statements and a timeline of events. Please let me know your availability. After I hit send, I let out a long, slow breath. Strangely, I felt lighter. Not because the pain was gone, but because I now had a path to walk, no longer lost in someone else's house. The condo was quiet that night. Outside, a light rain was falling, the streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement. I sat by my son's bed, watching him sleep. I knew that from this day forward, I was no longer the wife waiting for her husband to change. I was the mother of a child, and I had to be the most adult person in this room. They say an honest tree doesn't fear the storm, but for an honest tree to stand tall, it needs deep roots. My roots would not be tears. My roots would be clarity. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not out of diligence, but because I had an appointment with my own resolve. An appointment where being a step behind meant being cornered again. I took Liam to school, reminding him, eat all your lunch, and don't share too many of your snacks, okay? Liam grinned. Okay, Mommy, don't worry. I watched him walk through the gates until his small figure disappeared, then turned my car around. The cold Boston wind whipped through my collar. The dampness made you feel weary, but strangely, I felt alert. It's true what they say, fire tests gold and adversity tests strength. Only when everything collapses do you discover how you can stand back up. Mr. Evans had suggested a quiet coffee shop near his office building. I arrived 10 minutes early, ordered a hot tea, and placed my purse on my lap. Inside, I had copies of the condo deed, the screenshots of the bank statements, my timeline of events, and the last shred of self-respect of a woman who refused to be labeled a freeloader who caused trouble. Mr. Evans arrived on time. He was in his 40s, dressed professionally, with a direct but not intimidating gaze. He sat down and nodded. "Mrs. Miller? I'm David Evans. Let's get right to it. Just tell me what happened, chronologically. I'll ask questions as we go." Hearing chronologically was a relief. At my in-laws' house, every statement I made was twisted into a matter of attitude. Here, I was being heard like a case file. I opened my phone and showed him the screenshots. This is our joint savings account. A total of $45,000 was withdrawn over several transactions. Mr. Evans looked closely. Is the account in one name or both? Both names, but my husband held the debit card and login information. I trusted him, so I never checked. He nodded, without judgment. That's common. What's important now is that you have proof of the transactions. The statements are good. Now, the major asset? The condo is in both our names. The purchase agreement and the deed list us both as owners. Mr. Evans put his pen to a legal pad, asking questions like he was driving nails. Where is your husband now? He said he's in Singapore on business. He sent a check-in photo from the airport on January 17th. Do you suspect infidelity? I paused. The word still stung, but my voice didn't waver. I have information from his friend. The woman's name is Chloe. My mother-in-law is currently preparing the house to welcome an honored guest. Mr. Evans didn't delve into the emotional details. He just asked, "What do you want, Mrs. Miller? Do you want to keep the condo, or do you want to leave? Do you want to file for divorce immediately, or is securing custody your first priority?" I looked out the window at the passing traffic, a world that seemed to have nothing to do with me. Then I spoke, each word clear and deliberate. I want to protect my son, and I want to leave with my dignity intact. I don't want a fight. I don't want to be painted as a jealous wife destroying her family. But I also won't let them change the locks and throw us out. Mr. Evans nodded. So, priority 1 is the safety of you and your son. Priority 2 is your legal rights. Listen carefully. Since the condo is jointly owned, no one can legally evict you on their own. But in reality, they can make your life so miserable that you leave voluntarily. So, if you want to be proactive, there is a way, but it must be done by the book. He spoke slowly, as if to ensure I understood. You need a legally executed power of attorney from your husband, specifically for the property. With a valid POA, you can act on his behalf to sign sales contracts, pay taxes, receive funds, and hand over the property. That is the surest way to get you and your son out of that house cleanly. I heard this and my heart pounded. Power of attorney. It was exactly what I needed, but also the hardest thing to get. How could I make Mark sign it? How do I get a valid POA? I asked. He's in Singapore. Mr. Evans looked at me directly. If he's in Singapore, the document must be signed and certified at a U.S. embassy or consulate to be valid here. If it's signed elsewhere, it can be contested. And the document must be specific to sign a sales contract, receive funds, pay taxes, and transfer the property. No vague language. I gripped my purse. My mind raced. Mark was greedy. Mark was image conscious. Mark was lazy about reading fine print. If I could create a scenario where he saw a benefit for himself, he would sign. Mr. Evans seemed to read my mind. Can you get him to sign it voluntarily? Without coercion or threats? I can act, I said honestly. He thinks I still trust him. He hates trouble, but he loves an advantage. Mr. Evans nodded. Act, but remember, everything you say should be aimed at a legal objective. No insults, no provocations. The angrier you get, the weaker your position will be in a custody hearing. I swallowed and asked my most pressing question. Child custody. If we divorce, what are my chances? Mr. Evans answered clearly, without sugarcoating. Your chances are very good, especially if you can prove you are the primary caregiver, that your husband has been neglectful, and that the environment at his parents' home is unstable for a child. But you must maintain a calm, responsible image, focused on your son. And from now on, document every significant interaction. I nodded. The things I had been doing weren't meaningless after all. Mr. Evans wrote out a short, simple list for me. Ensure your safety. Have a place to go. Do not cause a scene or engage in fights. Gather evidence, bank statements, his travel dates, your role as primary caregiver. If they cause trouble, get a witness or a police report. Create a plausible reason for him to sign the POA. I looked at the list and felt a new sense of stability. They say women are weak because of love, but really, women are only weak when they have no path. Once there's a path, a woman can be tougher than anyone. Before I stood to leave, I asked one last question. Mr. Evans, if they do change the locks, what do I do to avoid looking like the aggressor? He answered immediately. Don't force your way in or get into a shouting match. Call a neutral third party, a trusted neighbor, the police as a witness. Record the situation. Say one thing, and one thing only, in a calm voice. I am a co-owner of this property, and I am entering my home. The calmer you are, the harder it will be for them to smear you. I stood up and thanked him. Leaving the coffee shop, the air was still damp, but my chest felt lighter. I was no longer just a victim. I had a map. I went to pick up Liam from school. He ran out, grinning. I knelt to wipe the sweat from his forehead. Did you have a good day? Yes. And we get to bring a storybook for show and tell tomorrow. Okay, I said, holding his hand tightly. His small hand pulled me back to reality. Every plan was for his peace. That night, I returned to my in-laws' house at the usual time. I cooked, cleaned, and addressed Karen with the same polite tone. But inside, I was different. I was writing a script for myself. Not a script for revenge, but a script for a clean exit. I just needed one thing, Mark's signature, in the right place, on the right words, at the right time. And to get it, I would have to swallow a few more bitter pills. But this time, I was swallowing them with a purpose. That evening, I cooked dinner as usual, stir-fried greens, braised fish, and a bowl of pickled vegetables. Dinner at my in-laws' house always felt like an exam. Karen took a few bites and then said, "We have things going on. Remember to watch your mouth. Don't go gossiping." I put down my chopsticks and nodded. Yes, I know. Arthur, sitting across from me, continued to eat slowly. He didn't ask questions, but his eyes seemed to remind me, don't let your emotions trip you up. After putting Liam to bed, I waited. My phone was ready. I didn't call right away. I waited until 9:30 p.m., a time when people are usually winding down, relaxed enough to listen to sweet talk but tired enough to be lazy about reading documents carefully. Timing is everything. I placed a video call to Mark. After a few rings, his face appeared. The lighting was harsh, a hotel room curtain behind him. He was in a t-shirt, his hair damp. Seeing me, he smirked. "What's with the video call? Miss me?" In the past, that would have made me melt. Now, I saw it as just a coat of paint. I made my voice soft, a little hesitant, like a good wife. "I'm sorry about the other day. I know I asked too many questions about the money. I probably stressed you out." Mark paused, then smiled. "It's good you realize that. Just be good at home. Don't upset Mom." I nodded, looking directly into the camera like someone who needed her husband's protection. "I know. I was just worried about Liam. But I'm calling because something came up." I got an offer to design the interior for a new penthouse. But the client requires me to prove my financial standing to sign the contract. Mark's eyebrows shot up. I saw his greed flicker like a neon sign. Financial standing? What does that mean? I had rehearsed my lines and delivered them smoothly. They need to see that I have enough cash flow to handle material procurement and pay subcontractors before they release payments. Since I'm a freelancer, they're worried I'm not stable. I asked a friend at the bank, and he said since we have a major joint asset, it would be simple if I had a power of attorney from you to handle the paperwork. Mark frowned slightly. Power of attorney for what? I quickly explained, framing it as a way to help him, a way to take the burden off his shoulders. Just a POA for me to represent you in signing documents related to the financial proof things with the bank. My friend said without it, they'd have to call you for verification every time, and I know how busy you are in Singapore. Mark stared at me. I knew he was weighing the risks and rewards. I had to appeal to his ego before dangling the bait. Mark, I said, my voice softer. Honestly, this is a huge opportunity. If I land this, it's good money and great for my reputation. It'll reflect well on you, too. I don't want people to think your wife just stays home and spends money. I want to stand beside you proudly. Hearing that, his expression softened. Men often don't need words of love. They need words of respect. Who's the client? He asked, still cautious. I didn't invent a specific name that could be checked. I kept it safe. It's a referral through a colleague. They're very private. But they need the paperwork by next week, or they'll move on to another firm. Mark mulled it over, his fingers tapping on a table. I slipped in one more line, just a little playful. If I'm late, I lose the whole deal. And I really don't want you to be bothered with late-night calls about paperwork. Mark chuckled, a small laugh, but it told me his guard was down. You can prepare the documents, but I don't like complicated legal stuff. I acted relieved. I know, that's why I want to get your signature once, so it's all done. I asked a lawyer to draft a standard form. You just have to take it to the U.S. consulate over there to have it certified. They'll do it quickly, and you can just courier it back to me. Mark's brow furrowed. What lawyer? I told a half-truth. Mr. Evans. He's an acquaintance of my dad. Dad gave me his number in case I ever needed help with household legal matters. I just asked him to draft a proper form, that's all. Mentioning my father made Mark pause. He respected Arthur far more than he respected me. I continued in a soft voice. Don't worry. I'll only do what's necessary for the application. We're married. I wouldn't do anything foolish. It's all on paper, and I'm afraid of getting into trouble, too. Mark looked at me for a few more seconds, then granted his permission. Fine, I'll sign it. But remember, don't do anything to upset Mom, and don't let her know about this. She'll just make it complicated. I nodded immediately, the perfect, obedient wife. I understand. I'll just say it's for a work application. And I promise, I won't ask about the money again. I trust you. The word trust tasted like ash in my mouth, but my face remained serene. A soft touch can tie a tight knot. It wasn't pretty, but it was the safest way to protect my son. Mark stood up, phone in hand. Send me the address and instructions. Make it quick. I will, I replied. Right away. After the call ended, I didn't sigh in relief. I immediately texted Mr. Evans. He agreed. Please finalize the POA with the exact scope we discussed, and a checklist of documents he'll need for the consulate. Then I opened a new note and wrote one line. Mark agreed to sign, 9:42 p.m., Jan 17. In the living room, Karen was looking at her phone, smiling to herself. I didn't care what she was smiling about. I only knew that I had just pulled a crucial piece of the puzzle to my side. I went back to Liam's room. He was asleep, his lips puckered. I gently touched his hair, thinking of an old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. My will wasn't to win, but to secure a dignified place for my son and me. The next morning, I took Liam to school as usual, bought him a warm pastry, and smiled at the school security guard. I kept everything in rhythm so no one would suspect a different script was playing out in my head. When I got home, Karen was already at the dining table. "Did you call your husband last night? You were on for a while." I put my bag down. "Yes, just asking about his work." Karen sneered. "Work is work. Don't get any ideas. A smart woman knows to keep her mouth shut." I just said yes and walked away. I didn't need to win a verbal spar with her. I just needed to keep her from sniffing out my plan. Around noon, Mark texted, "Send the form and instructions, now." I didn't reply immediately. I reread the email Mr. Evans had sent. The instructions were crystal clear. The POA's scope had to be specific. I called Mr. Evans one last time. "Can you double-check the wording? I'm afraid he'll sign something that leaves a loophole." Mr. Evans was firm. "Don't worry. The scope is ironclad. To sign the contract of sale for the condominium, receive funds via wire transfer, pay all related taxes and fees. Complete the title transfer, and hand over the property as per the contract." Just sent him the checklist and the exact address of the consulate. I then composed a message to Mark, sending only 3 things: the PDF of the power of attorney, the address of the U.S. consulate, and the list of required documents. Less than 5 minutes later, he called. I looked at it. "It's too long." My voice was soft. "It's long to be safe, honey. It's their standard template." Mark clicked his tongue. "I'll sign it, but don't you dare do anything beyond what you told me." I feigned innocence. "Beyond what? What do you mean?" "Don't touch the condo," he said, his voice cold. "That's a major asset. You're only using this for a financial background check." I understood. He wanted the potential benefit but also wanted to tie my hands. I played the part of the dutiful wife. "Of course. I just need the paper for the application." I would never do something with the condo on my own. He seemed satisfied and laid out his conditions. First, Mom cannot know. Second, you behave yourself at home. Third, stop asking about the money I withdrew. I told you I'm handling it. I listened to his list and wanted to laugh. He had taken $45,000, was planning to kick me out, and was still demanding I behave. I just whispered, "Yes, I understand. I won't cause any trouble." "Good," he said, as if granting a pardon. "Don't overthink things. I'm really working here." I didn't argue. I just said, "I know." I hung up and immediately documented his conditions. Not for revenge, but as evidence. One day, his own words would condemn him. That evening, I was tucking Liam in. He was practicing his letters and pouted when I corrected him. "Mommy, you're so strict." I smiled. "I'm strict so that when you grow up, no one can push you around." After he fell asleep, I stood on the balcony. Boston was still damp. I thought of the phrase, "Spoken words fly away, but black and white on paper stays." I was walking that path now. I didn't need pity. I just needed the law on my side. All I had to do now was wait for that signature to travel across the ocean and land safely in my hands. Mark was silent for 2 days after that call. That was his way. Once he agreed to something, he considered it done and didn't want to be bothered. I didn't push him. I just sent one text on the morning of the 3rd day, during business hours in Singapore: "Remember to bring your passport, residency permit if you have one, and the printed POA, to the U.S. consulate for certification. Thank you." He saw the message but didn't reply. That was enough for me. At home, Karen was still in a flurry of preparations. She bought imported cookies and arranged them on a platter. She made me iron the tablecloth. I did it all in silence. I knew she was watching me for any change in behavior, so I had to maintain the routine perfectly. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Mark called. He sounded annoyed. "I'm here. There's a long line." I knew he was at the right place. I kept my voice light. Just be a little patient, honey. My client is very strict about having the official consular seal. The wrong signature, and they'll reject my application. Yeah, I know, he grumbled. He was lazy, and the more he just wanted to get it over with, the better. Just sign it exactly as it's written, okay? Don't change a word. He scoffed. Like I have time to edit it. That night, Karen asked me casually, "How's your husband's business going? Has he called?" I answered simply, "He's busy. He called to check on Liam's schoolwork." Karen sneered. That's how a man should be. Focused on making money, not listening to his wife. She then added, "A woman who wants a good life has to know her place. If they let you stay, you stay. If they don't, you don't cling." I heard the word cling and felt a chill. To them, I wasn't family. I was a piece of furniture. That night, after everyone was asleep, I received a text from Mark. It was a photo of an envelope with a red consular seal on a table, with 2 words, "It's done." I stared at the seal, a weight lifting from my chest. I texted back, "Thank you. Please send it by express courier and keep the tracking number." He replied with a simple K. I immediately messaged Mr. Evans. The plan was in motion. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply. Not because the storm was over, but because I was finally holding the lifeline for my son and me. 2 days after the "It's done" text, a call from a courier had me on my feet. I was in the kitchen, and my heart started racing. I washed my hands and walked to the door calmly. Karen was watching from the living room. "It's a work document, Mom," I said. She grunted, and I took the envelope to my room and locked the door. I called Mr. Evans. "I have it. I'm opening it now." "Good," he said. "Open it. Check 3 things, the consular seal, the date, and that the scope of authority is exactly as we drafted." I opened the envelope. The paper smelled of fresh ink. The red seal was crisp. I read every line. Everything was there. I took photos and sent them to him. He replied quickly, "It's perfect, the scope is complete, the seal and location are correct. Keep the original somewhere safe. Do not lose it." I placed the document in a waterproof zip-top bag and locked it in a drawer. The next step was the market. Mr. Evans connected me with a reputable real estate agent named Chris. I met him at a coffee shop. "You want to sell a jointly owned property," he said, getting straight to business. "You have a valid power of attorney?" I showed him a copy. He read it carefully and nodded. "This is solid. What's your asking price?" I gave him numbers, not emotions. "We bought it for $480,000. I'm looking for around $515,000. The furniture is basic, I'm not trying to overprice it." "Do you need to sell fast?" he asked. That was a market trap. A fast sale means a low price. I need a definite timeline, but I'm not selling at any price. I prefer a buyer with clean financing for a quick closing. Chris smiled. "Smart. I'll find the right people." We agreed on the terms, all communication would be documented, and all showings would be scheduled in advance, discreetly. A few days later, Chris had a buyer. A couple in their 40s. They were serious. I showed them the condo, answering their questions calmly. "Whose name is on the deed?" the wife asked. "It's in my husband's and my name," I said. "I have a legally certified power of attorney to handle the transaction." That one sentence erased their hesitation. People buying property hate complications. They made an offer. We agreed on $515,000. The next day, we signed the initial agreement, and their deposit was wired to a new bank account I had opened in my name only. When the bank notification came through, my hands were cold, but my mind was clear. At home, Karen was getting more suspicious. "You're out a lot," she'd say. "Liam has an art class now," I'd reply. "The teacher says he has a talent." She'd scoff. "Art? What a waste of time." Then she'd add a jab, Don't use the child as an excuse to be running around. It stung, but I didn't react. The closing was scheduled for the following week. It was a whirlwind of paperwork, but I was prepared. I had every document organized. I had started moving non-essential items to a storage unit, a few boxes at a time. I had also signed a lease on a small, sunny apartment near Liam's school and my mother's house. On the day of the final closing at the title company, I was calm. The closing agent reviewed the power of attorney and nodded. Everything is in order. I signed the documents. My signature was firm. It was done. I had given my in-laws notice, as per the sales agreement, that they had 30 days to vacate. But I knew they wouldn't. The real storm was about to hit. I had sent Liam to my mother's the night before. "Mommy has a very important workday," I told him. He just hugged me and said, "Come back soon." On the day of the handover, I arrived at the condo with Chris. I had also asked the HOA president and a local police officer to be present as neutral witnesses, just as Mr. Evans advised. Karen was standing at the door, her face red with fury. "You have some nerve," she shrieked. "You think you can just steal my son's house?" I stood tall, my voice even. "Karen, this is a joint asset. I acted with a legal power of attorney and a notarized sales contract. The property has been sold." She started screaming, not swearing, but every word was an attack on my character. Neighbors peeked out their doors. I listened, but I did not engage. If I lost my temper, I would lose everything. The police officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, please calm down. This is a legal transaction. If you refuse to hand over the property, the new owners have the right to file for eviction, which will only create more problems for your family." Hearing the word eviction and seeing the neighbors watching, Karen faltered. Her biggest fear was public humiliation. "What about my things?" she snarled. Chris handed her a pre-prepared inventory list and a timeline for moving her belongings. I said only one thing. "You can schedule a time to remove your personal items. I am not keeping anything that belongs to you." She pulled out her phone and called Mark. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Mark, his voice frantic. "Emily, what the hell are you doing? Did you trick me?" I didn't argue with him in the hallway. I said one thing, my voice like a final verdict. "Mark, please direct all communication to my lawyer, Mr. Evans. I am handing over the property as per the legal sales contract." He cursed and hung up. Arthur appeared as Karen was starting to pack. He looked at me, his eyes tired but kind. I walked over to him. "Dad, I don't want you to have to leave. You can stay with me." He shook his head. "You take care of Liam. If I stay, they will just drag you into more drama." He then turned and started helping his wife. My eyes burned with tears. I wasn't kicking out my father-in-law. I was letting him choose the path that would protect his grandson. Mark flew back immediately and stormed into the title company, demanding they void the sale. They showed him the file, the consular seal, the specific scope of the POA he had signed, the entire paper trail. He was defeated. He called Chloe for support, but she was suddenly distant, avoiding his calls as if she'd never made any promises. He had sown the wind, and now he was reaping the whirlwind. I never spoke to Mark again directly. Mr. Evans handled everything. We presented the evidence in court, the $45,000 withdrawal, Mark's travel records proving his neglect, the witness statements from the handover day, illustrating the unstable environment. The judge awarded me full physical custody of Liam. Mark was granted visitation rights, with strict conditions, and ordered to pay child support. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, the Boston sky was surprisingly clear and sunny. I picked Liam up from school. He ran out and threw his arms around my neck, laughing, as if he had no idea his mother had just navigated the hardest days of her life. In the distance, I saw Mark watching us. He stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away. The arrogance was gone. He was just a man who had learned that some things, once lost, can never be bought back. I held my son's hand and we walked away, slowly. I didn't look back. Not out of hatred, but out of peace. Life is a test of patience. But patience isn't about enduring humiliation forever. It's about waiting for the right moment to stand up straight. In life, there are some things worth remembering. Love requires respect, and finances require transparency to maintain peace. If you found this story meaningful, please leave a like for the channel. Thank you for listening to the end. I wish you all health and serenity, and I'll see you in the next story on Broken Promises.